Hey there, my name is Per Schofors, and if you followed me, you know it's a weird name. It's Swedish, and it makes perfect sense over there, and in the rest of Scandinavia, to be honest. Less so here in the US. So my moniker here, I'm also known as the Price Whisper. A lot easier to find, certainly a lot easier to spell if you want to look for me online and so forth. So anyway, today we're going to talk about how how you develop a pricing strategy, right? And not any pricing strategy, because there's a couple of things to consider here when it comes to your pricing strategy. First off, is that if you today are selling something, whether it's a product, whether it's a service, whether you sell it B2B, whether you sell it B2C, you have a pricing strategy, right? Because you have prices, unless you give things away, which of course you can do, but it doesn't create a lot of revenue. And even if you do give things away, I'm sure you give things away with the hope that eventually you're going to have people coming to you and paying you for whatever whatever you do, right? So the first thing to think about when it comes to pricing strategy is that you already have one, right? It may not be the best one, but you have a pricing strategy. The second thing to consider is that there is no silver bullet, right? I've had conversations with CEOs of companies of quite significant sizes even that come to me, and they say that our business is not doing so well, and we're looking for that pricing silver bullet that will completely turn around our company. Doesn't exist. Doesn't exist. So if you think that there is a silver bullet for pricing, then think again, please. Right. Another thing to consider when we think about pricing strategy, and I get people talk to people all the time, and they say, I have a widget A or I have a service B, and what is the right price? Well, it all depends, right? There is no silver bullet. There's a methodology, there's a process, but there's no silver bullet, right? So let's start by thinking a little bit about some common pricing strategies that companies are using today. One of them is cost plus. Very simple. You calculate the cost of whatever you're selling, and this could be cost of a product, it could be cost of a service, it could be a product that you import from somewhere and sell here in the US. It could be a product that you manufacture. It could be a service that you have defined in one way or another, and everything has its cost. So cost plus is simply to take that cost, calculate it as carefully as possible, and then add a margin to it. So then the question is, what margin? Well, in the different industries have sort of different rules of thumb for the margin. A client, earlier client, selling it's a supplement, and they said, we have learned. It's a startup company, and they said, we have learned that our price is going to be 5 times our cost. Why? Because your costs have nothing to do with the value that your clients are getting. So I mean, yeah, you should not sell under your cost unless you do it for strategic reasons, and then you'll probably only do it for a little while. Yeah, there's outliers there. We know that Amazon, for example, they were selling unprofitably for what, 12 years, 15 years before they decided that now it's time to crank up the prices and start making some money, right? And obviously they were supported by billions of by investors, which is good for them. But so cost plus is a very common pricing strategy. It does have a one single advantage, and that it takes very little resource to develop. It is very easy for a company to communicate it internally. If you have salespeople asking why is our pricing the way they are, they say, well, we take our cost, and then in our particular business, the rule of thumb is that we should take our cost times 5, and that's our price. Or in other industries, you simply double your cost. In other industries, you do add 35% on top of the cost. Even in some industries, you do it times 10. So it's all different. Now, I said it's easy with cost plus, and that's okay. It also is a guarantee that you're going to leave money on the table. And that's probably not what you want, right? You want to have as much money as you can for your product so you can grow get more resources in your company, right? Another very common pricing strategy is to simply look at competitors and price the same way. And you say, oh, my product is a little bit better, so I'll do a little higher. Or my product is not really as good, so I'll do a little lower. And not only, I mean, again, that's what you think. Well, what do your customers think, right? Pricing to a competitor leads to commoditization, because that leads to often lower margins and lower resources, and you start cutting corners with your product or service, the benefits, and then you get even less resources, and you're in the commoditization death spiral, something you want to avoid, I can assure you. So, and by the way, how did that competitor or competitors set their prices? Maybe cost plus. Maybe they were just guessing, right? Maybe they put up a finger in the air and said, well, I think it should be $165 because it feels good, right? So, and that's the obviously the next big issue with pricing, and that is that you simply guess. People sometimes say that, yeah, we price to market. Well, what does that mean? How do you know what the market pays, right? Unless what you sell is publicly available, you don't know. You don't know. Even if your competitor have prices on their website, you still don't know what deals they're making. They may have their website geo-targeted, so people in different areas see different prices. They may have it done so that if you're a returning customer, you'll see, or a returning visitor, you'll see a different price than if you were there the first time. They may experiment with different prices, so you go there at different times a day, you see different prices. So again, it's you just don't know, right? So these are the really the three main pricing strategies: cost plus, price to a competitor, and simply guesswork. And they're all having the same issue with that they leave money on the table. So how do you then develop a pricing strategy that maximize your growth, maximize your revenues, and your shareholder value? Well, it all starts with understanding which business you're in, right? Think about Red Bull. You know, they sell a sugary drink with lots of caffeine in. The business they're in is sort of entertaining. They monetize that business of entertaining. You know, they have these planes, they do all different kinds of sports events and so forth. They're in the entertainment business, and they monetize it by selling a sugary, caffeine-laden drink, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But just think about the business that you're in. The other thing is to understand what is your goals. Are your goals to maximize your sales volume? Are your goals to maximize your revenues? Are your goals to maximize profitability? I always like to advise people to focus on profitability, for the simple reason that if you price to maximize your profitability, you get more resource to develop more product. You can do more marketing. You can hire the best people. And it really, over time, over a longer period of time, it elevates the company. So first figure out what you think your business is in, and then you need really to understand what your customers want in terms of pricing strategy. Do they want a stratified pricing strategy? Do they want to pay like a subscription? Do they, if they want a stratified pricing strategy, how should it be stratified? What variables are important for your customers in such a way that you can minimize sales friction and maximize revenues and profits. So that's the first thing. The second is that you also need to understand your customer's decision landscape. Now, the decision landscape is everything that has to do with how your clients are making their decision, how they see you and value the various competitors to you, how various marketing messages are effective or not, marketing channels are effective or not, sales methodologies and messages are effective or not, how their prior experience with your company and with competitors affects how they like to see you price, how other people tell them about your company and tell them about competitors, and how that affects what pricing strategy they like to see, because it needs to be driven by your customers, right? And you find this out with willingness to pay research. And willingness to pay research is a different way of doing really market research. It's much more stringent, and it works just as well in business to business to consumer goods or services. And you can measure willingness to pay with great accuracy, and from that you can predict sales volume and revenue at different prices. But that's just the beginning, because then you look at different customer segments. Different customer segments will inevitably have different willingness to pay, and will therefore support different prices. Same with features and functions. Some features will drive a higher willingness to pay than other features, and therefore it will help you with your product strategy. And when you know what product features, whether it's features of a product or a service that drives the highest willingness to pay, you want to use them in your marketing, in your sales literature. And if you haven't developed them, that's the features you want to focus on, right? And marketing, you want to know what how you can make your marketing as effective as possible with the messages that leads to the highest sales volume and revenue. And you also want to know what creates sales friction so you can avoid it. And by avoiding sales friction, you can make sure that your sales are going to increase, whatever pricing strategy you decide, and so will your revenues. So all of this means that you need to take a very holistic view on pricing. It's not just guessing, it's not just looking at a competitor, it's not just say, all right, our cost is X, so we double that, right? It's a process. It's very successful. It is well proven, and there's no reason why it shouldn't work for you too, right? So you develop your pricing strategy based on willingness to pay research and understanding of, in detail, what your customers are willing to pay and what they're willing to pay for. Then you can have a pricing strategy that makes sure that no money is left on the table, and that you maximize growth, you maximize profitability, and you maximize shareholder value. And I'm sure that you want all of those. All right.